In 1942, as World War II was blazing across the globe, the island of Madagascar became the center of a high-stakes game of cat and mouse between the Axis and Allied powers. The Vichy French-controlled territory, boasting priceless harbors and the potential to host menacing submarines, drew the attention of both the British Empire and the Japanese. It was a key strategic location, particularly the port of Diego-Suarez, and it had to be captured. In a world where the tides of war turned relentlessly, an unsung battle raged on a remote and exotic island, the likes of which had never been seen before. Now, as hundreds of valiant soldiers approached the island aboard Royal Navy vessels, the stage was set for an explosive encounter as the fate of the world hung in the balance. Madagascar. After the ceasefire signed at Compagnie in June 1940, a pro-German puppet government was established in Vichy, leaving portions of France, including all overseas territories, effectively under Nazi control. Meanwhile, Japan, another Axis power, had quickly gained predominance in the Indian Ocean. By the end of 1941, Great Britain had heard of the Germans' plans to give Madagascar, a French colony at the time, to the Japanese. Control over this African island would cement the Axis hold on some of the most important sea routes, possibly tipping the scales of power in the region in their favor. To prevent Japan from taking over Madagascar as a submarine base, Great Britain began to plan an invasion of the colony. However, with their forces already stretched thin, such a mission would be extremely risky and require a massive show of military force. Operation Ironclad, the initial landing section of the invasion of Madagascar, ended up being a monumental undertaking born out of necessity. Driven by a sense of urgency, the British Armed Forces assembled a massive Royal Navy task force comprising warships, troop transports, and supply vessels. For months, top war planners studied maps and intelligence reports, devising strategies against the more than formidable enemy for every possible scenario. Worthy landing force. On May 5, 1942, following several reconnaissance missions led by the South African Air Force, a fleet of aircraft carriers, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and transport vessels set sail to Madagascar. Carrying the British 29th Infantry Brigade and No. 5 Commando, with men from Britain and other British colonies like South Africa, Rhodesia, and India, the force landed in Courier Bay and Ambararata Bay, a crucial location on the northern end of Madagascar. The capture of the port was expected to deny the Vichy French a crucial base of operations and provide the Allies with a strategic foothold in the region. As hundreds of soldiers poured out of the landing craft and waded through chest-deep water towards the shore with guns blazing, the only thing on their minds was to secure a beachhead. The soldiers and sailors were determined to succeed, as the outcome of the war was at stake, but they also knew the price of victory would be high. For the first phase of Operation Ironclad, the British were supported by naval gunfire and air cover from their carrier-based aircraft, which helped soften up the French defenses. The landing was initially met with resistance from the French garrison, led by General Paul Le Gentilhomme, as the Vichy French had prepared well for the invasion, fortifying their positions along the coast with machine guns, artillery, and barbed wire. But while the British troops were initially hampered by the rugged terrain and the French defenses, the battle ended after only 2 days, with the Vichy troops escaping to southern Madagascar. The British then pushed through and established a beachhead at Courier Bay, proceeding inland towards the capital city of Antananarivo. The success of the initial bombardments and landings were crucial to the operation's overall success. What about Japan? While the Japanese Empire saw Madagascar as a potential base of operations in the Indian Ocean, the Imperial Japanese Navy did not directly engage in the battle for the prized island. Instead, its involvement was initially limited to intelligence gathering and reconnaissance operations. Even so, a minor incident with Japanese vessels occurred in African waters. On May 29th, 3 Japanese submarines, I-10, I-16, and I-20, reached Antsiranana Bay, nearly 3 weeks after the initial landings. While the I-10's reconnaissance aircraft spotted HMS Ramirez, a Revenge-class super dreadnought battleship at anchor in the harbor of Diego-Suarez, the warplane was in turn discovered by the crew of Ramirez, who changed the vessel's berth. To defend themselves, the I-20 and I-16 launched 2 midget submarines, one of which managed to enter the harbor and fire 2 torpedoes under a depth charge attack from 2 corvettes. One torpedo severely damaged Ramirez, while the second sank the 6,993-ton oil tanker British Loyalty. Even so, both ships were eventually repaired. Meanwhile, one of the Japanese midget submarines was lost at sea, and the crew of the other submarine beached their craft and advanced toward the pickup point. They then arrived at the village of Anajabi, and after buying food, were betrayed by the locals and attacked by Royal Marines 3 days later. Moving inland. Following the initial landings of Operation Ironclad, the British faced continued hostilities for several months in Madagascar, as the troops tried to advance toward the south in an attempt to capture the entire island. As the British, South African, Rhodesian, and Indian forces advanced, they faced several challenges, including heavy rain, rugged terrain, and determined resistance from the French, who were mainly composed of colonial troops from West Africa and Madagascar, and French regulars. Such forces fiercely protected Madagascar, using ambushes, laying mines, and launching counterattacks. On July 2nd, an invasion force was sent to the Vichy-held island of Mayotte to try and take control of its radio station, a high-value target that was later used as a base for British operations in the area. The capture was carried out with no significant losses. Persevering, the Allies consolidated their position and pushed deeper into the island. The thick of it. One of the crucial operations within the Battle of Madagascar was Streamline Jane, which consisted of 3 separate sub-operations, codenamed Stream, Line, and Jane. Stream and Jane were the amphibious landings at Majunga on September 10th and Tamatave on September 18th. Operation Line, however, was the advance from Majunga to the French capital, Tananarive, which fell on September 23rd, followed by the town of Ambalavao, from where the devoutly Vichy governor Armand Ane escaped. The first significant battle took place on October 18th at Andramanolina, a U-shaped valley within the winding Mangarahara River. The Vichy troops had planned an ambush for the British forces, but the King's African Rifles split into 2 columns, marched around the U of the valley, met Vichy troops in the rear, and ambushed them, causing heavy losses and leading to 800 surrenders. Despite their initial success, the Allies faced difficulties in tracking down Governor Ane. However, they did eventually locate him, and he surrendered on November 8, 1942, marking the end of the conflict. The Battle of Madagascar was the first large-scale operation of World War II by the Allies, combining sea, land, and air forces. The landing at Diego-Suarez resulted in about 500 casualties for the Allies, while subsequent operations caused over 100 losses. Overall, the battle was a significant victory for the Allies, providing them with a strategic base in the Indian Ocean and disrupting Axis plans for the region. Wide scope. In the aftermath of the battle, the Allies consolidated their position on the island and began rebuilding and restoring order. Madagascar became a vital base of operations for the Allies, allowing them to launch attacks on enemy targets across the region. The Battle of Madagascar is also notable for its role in the broader war effort. One war historian, Julian Jackson, even noted that the French had held out longer against the Allies in Madagascar than they had against the Germans in France in 1940. The operation was controversial, and some historians have speculated that the British may have had ulterior motives for the invasion. One of the primary factors was that the Allied forces, led by the British, were attacking Vichy French-controlled Madagascar, even though France was not an official enemy at the time. This created a delicate political situation, as the British needed to weigh securing the island against potential Japanese expansion, with the desire to maintain positive relations with the Vichy French government. The Allies justified their actions by claiming that the presence of Vichy French forces posed a risk to their control over the Indian Ocean and the safety of important shipping routes. Consequently, the Battle of Madagascar strained relations between the British and the Free French forces, who felt that they had not been appropriately consulted in the planning and execution of the campaign. In addition, the defeat of the Vichy French regime in Madagascar was a blow to the French colonial empire and helped to pave the way for the eventual independence of Madagascar in 1960. Thank you for watching Dark Docs. Don't hesitate to click on your screen and explore our other Dark Documentaries channels, where we delve into more intense battles and unique warfare technology. Also hit the bell icon to be notified of our newest content, which we publish regularly. Stay tuned.